because I wanted things my own way. I was a brat, B-R-A-T. I wanted things. I had that whole Burger King mentality. Like, I want to have it my way. And because I approach things, like DJ would give me coaching. He's an excellent coach. But I was like, I don't want to hear you. I'm not trying to hear you. I was in my own way. And because I was in my own way and I wouldn't listen, that caused him to shift in doing some things. And so, and we talked about this, you know, some decisions he made based on my foolishness, based on, I'm a brat, you know, and that really created, I think of that, you know, when you're sweeping and you may sweep things under the rug, and then after a while, it becomes this whole bubble thing. I needed to deal with my foolishness and my issues and realize that was hindering DJ and Lisa and hindering our flow. So number one, for me, that was one of our obstacles that, you know, we dealt with.
And so, and that's equal on both parts, because as individuals, here's what happens in relationships, right? Especially in marriage. You got two people that came from separate backgrounds, right? Two totally different environments. You know, she's from a different part of she's from Chester originally. I was born in New Jersey, but I grew up in Philadelphia. And so totally different backgrounds, dealing with how we were raised and the things that went into making up who we are as individuals. And so now you try to take those two separate lives and try to incorporate them together into what we call a family. And so if there are, even if you've got great foundations and great references, right? You got great examples to look at in your families, right? Great examples of family members that are married and doing well and have done well over the years. It still doesn't necessarily equate to what you have to deal with in your own relationship. So obstacle.
I was told that I couldn't have kids back when I was 17. So, you know, that I think that also played a role with not being traditional and it not being planned, because I was on birth control when I got pregnant, and it was one of those, like, you know, I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, so it's always like, you know, your hormones are this, you know, your cycle is off. So to even find out that I was pregnant was a surprise. I was 30 or about to turn 30, and it was one of those, like, you know, if this is the time that God has, you know, blessed us with, we may not have this, you know, time ever again. And so, of course, you know, when you think about it, you're like, wait, you guys, I guess traditionally folks want to be married prior to having their kids. And so that was, you know, so even like when we told our families, it was funny because they were just like, Lai, you didn't even want to get married or have kids. And I was just like, you know, I think that also goes back to being told that you can't have kids at such a young age. That seed is planted. So you're just like, all right, I'm just not going to have kids.
Just coming out of that relationship and that marriage, unfortunately, it was a situation where I was, you know, you're in a marriage, and unfortunately, when things don't work out or you have repetitive things that just keep going on that are unsavory in a marriage or for a marriage, you just had, at that point, I had let it go. But I had actually divorced the marriage myself in my head like years ago. So I was pretty much ready to move on and had to move on. And again, coming back and taking care of my parents was one thing. But then I think the only thing I was a little hesitant about starting another relationship, because I had my parents, I had my job and I was working night shift, and between that and my parents, I felt like both of those would just take up so much time. When would I have time to date? And I didn't want that to be a burden on her. So that was the only hesitation.
And I told her I wasn't going anywhere and I'll wait. So
yeah. So I said, at least we have a friendship that, you know, you can stick with me along this journey with this whole parent everything. And I'm an only child and I do not have children. So, yeah, like basically my concentration was on work, a new position at work. I actually got my old job back. I work at Temple University Hospital. And, but
that's how it
started. It just stuck. Yeah, it just stuck. And I think we went from 0 to 100 real quick. Yeah. Anyway, we've been at 100 ever since. Yeah. And like nothing scared her, nothing chased her away when it came to what I thought would, which was, you know, like me dealing with the parents and having a lot of time away from her to put my attention on other things. It didn't scare her away. So we've been at 100 even throughout all of that. So.
I actually said that God put him in my life first for me to have to deal with that, because we met in June, and by August, around my birthday, August 11th, I think I was diagnosed with lupus. But that entire summer, I thought I tweaked something. It was really weird, because it was just like a complete opposite of who I am, like very sluggish, very tired. My hair was falling out. It was very bad. Like my body was swelling in a lot of places. And so initially it was really very much a shock. And I could say for the first 5 years, I think he knows, but I don't think he really truly got the concept of it, because I went out of work. I had to go out of work. I've been out of work ever since, but it was more of during the day, shit, why you trying to make me cry? During the day, it was kind of like I was sitting in the house, no TV, no nothing, just very much depressed. And he always found the way to bring me out of it, always bring me out of it, make sure he kept me going, no matter if it was things he needed me to do that he probably really didn't need me to do, but just to keep me moving, keep me active. With my lupus, I'm hospitalized a lot throughout the year, sometimes throughout the year. And to watch him go to work, and he's an electrician, and he works very hard, 10, 12-hour days, but always make sure that he's with me through the night or through whatever, and always got my back. Like when I say this man has my back, it's very, is heartwarming. And I truly don't think I would be where I am and with my health if it wasn't for him pulling me out of my depression, making sure I continue to live life and continue to love life. And he shows me it, and and he understands. And that's a lot, because people see me and they don't think nothing's wrong, because it's not something that you can see on the outside, but he can actually, like, if I can't cook dinner, if I can't wash dishes or do laundry or whatever, he jumps right in, he helps me. It's just like, it's truly like, I thank God for him, because I know I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for him.
All been a dream.
No, I don't know about that.
I don't know, we had great support systems, but so like when we had kids and stuff, family supported us that way. I mean, I wouldn't say it was based on age. It has just been based on obstacles, based on me finishing school, Zack finishing school at the same time, just juggling, but it wasn't necessarily based on age.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that what happened with us that made it didn't feel like I didn't feel like obstacles. I got to be honest with you, it really did. We lived together in an apartment for a year. We bought a house. We had these kids, and we had a couple kids kind of back to back. That probably to me was the biggest obstacle, because there was an understanding from the onset that I had already graduated from college. I was in graduate school with my first master's, and Jill had just got out of the service. So we knew that we needed to work on an educational plan for Jill. I needed to get out of grad school. We needed to buy a house. She kept getting pregnant. all this,
I just kept getting
so, those were, I wouldn't use the word obstacles because I do feel like our life has been somewhat charmed. Although we've had challenges, we've had difficulties. I feel like there was a lot to do at one time. Being a social worker at DHS, having E-Day, and at that time, because our children were young and our children were being born, literally. We only had Zion. Zion was 1 when we came here, we bought this house. So I think organizing all of that on our limited salaries was a challenge, because we kind of had this great expectation for our lives and this great expectation for what we wanted to do. And our parents, her parents bought a house and had children. Our mother was very young, so we kind of had this blueprint, if you will, that we really followed. Right? We kind of did what was asked of us to be transparent of you. And then because I think we did the things that our parents expected of us, we had a ton of support. My grandmother watched Zion, our oldest daughter named Zion. My grandmother watched Zion when Jill was in school. And then Jill's grandmother watched Zoe when Jill was in school. And then by the time my son came along, Nancy, Jill's aunt Nancy helped us. And then by the time my son came along, we probably had been married 5 years. Yeah. When you had Zack. When you had Zack, we were married 4 years. Yeah. And in 4 years, we had our 3rd child. So those are challenges for young people, because your finances are not established the way they are when you're older. So I think that was a challenge for us, but we had a tremendous amount of support.
Is that when David finally came back to me the last time, he came with 2 children.
Came back?
When you came back.
I didn't come back. You came
Whatever.
Looking,
I didn't come looking.
Seeking.
When he finally came back, he came back with 2 children. So that I think about our earlier years, that was a big thing. Not so much the children per se, just the other parties that are associated with them. That became a big obstacle. It was lots of drama.
Did you pass the test? I had to give you the test first before you.
Anyway, yes, I did.
You did.
I passed the test. Whatever.
Because I had to make sure she was allowed to be around my kids. Because everybody ate 4 kids or other people's kids and raising other people's kids. So I brought my kids around like this one day, just randomly, and make sure that,
And I passed with flying colors. He didn't know.
You didn't know you were being tested.
I was passed with flying colors because he didn't know.
Wise. I came out of a broken home. My parents separated when I was around 9 or 10. I'm the oldest of 5, which put me into a leadership position
at an early age.
At a very early age, where I got no clue what that looks like. My dad, when he was there, didn't understand what fatherhood was, so I didn't have any examples at all to work from. So recognizing this later on, and this was way later, when that illumination happened for me, and I realized that was a hindrance. So I was a hindrance in the relationship, because some of the things that I believed about relationships came out, and they became a part of who we were. But again, learning that through great communication, we were able to overcome those obstacles. Then that's how we began to be better at what we do, and what we did, and how we're able to make it.
What another?
We've both been in a marriage prior to this, so it doesn't mean that we don't have experience in what we don't want. We know what doesn't work. So try not to put those things in practice, or go back to that and do the opposite. Do the things that do work when you're talking, when you're not allowing things to be a hindrance, is how things keep moving forward. You know what I mean? We're not going to wake up and be happy every day, but that doesn't mean that we can't talk about it.
Yeah, I was very involved when he met me, and I did a lot of volunteer work, and that was one of the things that was hard for him to adjust to.
Yes, quite an adjustment. But you do what you have to do to keep things going.
Early on, I thought it was something wrong with the house. I thought the environment is something. I'm checking the air quality in the house. I think it's me, because she was fine when I met her. And I'm thinking, we got to move out of this house. It's like it's mold in here somewhere. So what the fuck's going on? She was fine before she met me. Before she came over here, she was fine, and then all this shit started happening. But this is facts, though. This is really what I thought. Like, something was wrong with the house. We got to move. It's this house. But no, it was. In the beginning, I was asked the question that I want to continue in a relationship when she got diagnosed, and I was shocked that I was asked the question and offended at the same time. But the person that asked the question, I'm not going to get a person's name. It came from a genuine place from that individual. So I think they were just concerned about her and didn't think, because it was new in a relationship, the feelings weren't where they thought they were, that I wouldn't be able to tolerate what she was going to go through. I thought that would be classless for me, because she's a genuine person. I don't know anybody that I could think who deserves lupus less than her, because she's a genuine person and her heart is genuine, which is why the relationship is so easy. Why I don't mind jumping in to help wherever she needs it, because she's a genuine person. If the shoe was on the other foot, I have no doubt that she would do the same thing for me. So I think I'm lucky, even though she has lupus. I think I'm the lucky one, because with my schedule, how I move around, I don't know if it's a lot of people that could tolerate my schedule when I hang in there and tolerate who I can be as a person. So I think it's a win-win situation for me as well. But as far as the relationship, no, it didn't change much. As far as what I thought, I just want to make sure she's happy and enjoying her life. So that didn't change. I don't think anything changed. It just, I just got to help her where she needs help. So it was easy.
I mean, it's not one particular topic. If you think he says stuff a lot of times and he didn't say it, or we said something and he don't remember it.
Okay.
Like yesterday when you showed me the picture, he was like, "Yeah, we told you about the Girl Scout cookies on the block," and then you was like, "Oh."
Nobody told me anything.
Yeah.
I think that for us, probably we were younger, money, which isn't as much of an issue for us now.
Even then, because I was on his team, so.
But a lot of stuff, especially with the school, was basically flipped with one income.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, I certainly never. That's how you beat me to it. I was going to say I never felt pressure from Jill, but Jill would get frustrated with me sometimes if I spent money or spent money that she didn't think was wise. Given what our plan was, we were mid-plan then. So I mean, we had some healthy disagreements about money. We've never really had any disagreements for real around our children. I think we've always kind of been on the same page around expectations for our kids. Nothing really about properties. We've had a couple houses, but nothing about those, right? If anything, if anything is property she wants me to sell that I haven't yet, she wants to get rid of. But like I said before, in many ways, very blessed. I haven't really had a lot of difficulties.
And then, like, even when we came home for Christmas, it's like, Lay, you not joking? You really pregnant? I'm like, come on. You thought I was like joking from July when I called y'all to December, because it was
after she went to the closet.
I did go into the closet and cry when I found out, because I went into the laundry room, closed the door, because it was a shock. Where you're not planning, or when you again have been told you can't have kids, it wasn't something that, it wasn't on my to-do list. And so I've always been a person of like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And although I'm not an overthinker, I will say what I'm going to do and I'm going to do it. So like to have a baby or to, you know, be in a relationship and then get married and all of those things, or get engaged, those were things that wasn't technically on my to-do list. But I'm happy that God placed it there.
I mean, that was one of the testaments. Those things were very detrimental. Like, honestly, I didn't know if I was going to make it. And not because of the kids, just because of all the other things that came apart with them. So I didn't know if I was going to make it. Especially for me, I came from, lack of a words, of a blended family. And I just remember, like, my blended family didn't look like this. My blended family didn't have all this going on.
I ain't had a blended family.
So,
Sorry.
Yeah, so whatever. So
but I can say this. I knew what I wanted for my kids. So I wasn't going to settle. I had 2 young daughters, and I knew a position in life that I was in and what life I was trying to give them. And I wasn't going to settle for less. So you should feel good about yourself.
Oh, I'm so honored. But anyway, I'm so honored. But anyway, so yeah,
But now, fast forward to where we are today. We have a huge family, big family. My oldest 2 daughters love this young lady to pieces.
Probably more than they love him.
That's a fact. They love my daughters. I'm gonna say this on live TV. My daughters, my oldest 2, Aaliyah and Madison, loves her more than they love me. They share things with her before they share with me. I gotta find out things from her about my kids. Like, I feel like the bad parent.
The thing that pops up was our daughter was diagnosed. We call them gifts, but she was diagnosed with disabilities she was 4.
Mm-hmm.
She was diagnosed with the learning disability at 4, and then when she was 8 or 9, diagnosed with autism. And it wasn't the diagnosis that was the obstacle, it was our reactions.
Mm-hmm.
How we reacted.
Mm-hmm.
Studies show that parents of children with disabilities is 70% divorce. So our reactions were like, in addition, I think it poured into what we're just saying about how we were.
Mm-hmm.
And because we didn't have any
doubt.
Role models. We didn't have anybody around us that said, this is what you do. This is where you go. Oh, and this is where you can go as parents to get some kind of guidance. And so that was another thing that was swept under the rug.
Yeah. The wonderful thing, though, is that, you know, so the odds were beat here. Statistics were managed, and we came away from that having done having been blessed to work through that process.
Yeah, we worked through
you
that.
know, and you know, when the statistics said that, you know, that wasn't going to be the case, and that, you know, we should have ended up in the dregs because of that alone.
Mm-hmm.
But we have that to celebrate as an overcoming. So obstacles, yeah, they were there, and you know, with us being the primary obstacles, but guess what? You know, we had to learn to unobstacle ourselves.
Yeah.
That for one of those things, it was, I am afraid, right? Afraid to get my heart broken again, afraid to open up to somebody new, and always going to fail this time. But the thing is that, you know, you have to do things even in being afraid. Like, okay, if it fails, then what? I can't say that I can't say that I haven't tried, but I'm not even thinking about it failing because it feels so different. So, you know, when it comes to, it's like, even, I'm sure both of us were afraid, but even in how sincere we both were, and how serious we both were of being in a relationship that, you know, whatever didn't work before, we wouldn't bring that here or try to make every situation everything that comes to us, we basically overcome it together. Even though it's new, I wouldn't put a time frame on how good things are, you know, in your honeymoon phase and this, that, and the third. The crazy thing is I was with my girlfriends and they was like, it's not supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to look crazy. You're not supposed to be wrecking your brain like, oh, what's he gonna call me and this, that, and the third. It's supposed to be just what it is. And I'm embracing that part of it.
I must agree because it when you go through relationships with hardships and opposition, you think that, oh, this is normal or this is what happens, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the truth. So dealing with things, not allowing things to build up, and making it light, making it easier to continue to deal with life as well as relationship.
It's about communication. You know, we utilize the schedule. I know he has, you know, his schedule. I have my schedule. You know, we travel for work periodically. But then also we have an amazing village that helps us and supports us like no other. But it's also, you know, you have to be intentional. I grew up in a household, like we both came from 2-parent households, and both of our parents worked. And it's so funny, we didn't find this out that both of our parents or our fathers were correction officers. And it was just like, wow. And both of our grandfathers were named Samuel. So it was just like, what the heck? But it was also like, even though you have all these other things that line up, your schedules are not going to line up. Your time is not going to line up. And so it's just like having those conversations of, hey, this is what we need to do, but this is what we want to do. How do we then prioritize those things based off of the time that we are allotted?
Communicate. You gotta communicate. That's our foundation. Our foundation is communication. And if you can't talk to that person, it's just not gonna work.
So there's like 50-50 in a relationship, like each partner is 50-50.
Oh, that was.
I believed in the beginning. I thought that that's how it was in relationships, but being in a relationship and in a healthy relationship, a solid relationship, I learned that, you know, sometimes you give 80, sometimes the person gives 20, or sometimes the person gives 60 and you give 40, but it's what makes it work for the relationship, and it's not always having to be like an equal thing. And we very much, I think for us, we very much adapted that. Like I have systemic lupus, and a lot of times it's not an easy thing to deal with day in, day out, and to see like it's not no rules. So kind of like wherever he needs to pick up, he picks up. Wherever I need to pick up, I pick up. And you know, with him and work and with everything, we just, no matter what, we just got each other's back, I think.
First I need you to hear me and hear me good with this answer. You, Alexis. Initially I thought like women control the relationship, and I didn't like it. And the reason I didn't like it, because I didn't think it would allow me to be myself, and I didn't think a relationship would work. And I think any man that will allow himself to be controlled by someone else, i.e. it's a man or a woman, that they were being passive and really not being themselves. When in actuality, it's more so the man has a better control of the relationship. And what I mean by that is the direction, because you don't get married typically unless the man asks for the marriage. So when finding myself and making sure that things weren't going to be different from what I was naturally feeling, that's something that I thought was different now or later on in the relationship than in the beginning. I think I was a bit confused as to how relationships went.
And I think that goes to say, because your mom is very dominant, you know,
she's very dominant.
And it could be from what you saw.
Yeah, I would say so.
Education is definitely the hook and reel. It keeps us with all opposition. It keeps us with all negativity, to put it in front of us and find the thin line where it's not creating, what's the word I want to say? Wedges, I guess, a wedge in between us, or planting seeds of insecurity. You know what I mean? About what did that mean? How was that taken? So the laughter behind things brings things to the surface and allows it not to be held on to or a hindrance in still moving forward.
I would say the way that we communicate definitely brings out the laughter, right? Because we talk to each other like, this is my homie. Like, oh, let me tell you what so-and-so said. Let me tell you who reached out. Like, it's really a matter of just being honest about, since everything is so new, when you get with somebody, you know that they aren't alone. So it's kind of like, okay, in the back of both of our minds, it's like, okay, who was he dealing with? Who was she dealing with? You know what I mean? And then for us to, like, you know, make a complete change and be just engulfed in each other, it just, you know, it came about because we are honest with one another, and we are serious and diligent in creating this new love.
Ooh.
You like that?
I did.
So, like, no one, we call it our bubble, and we vowed that no one would penetrate that bubble, put a pin in it or anything like that, and get to us. So it's the strength that we have for our relationship. And you know, I had a fear that, you know, she would leave because of what was going on and what I was going through, and she stood by my side, and that meant so much to me. And I'm just like, yeah, this isn't going away. This is not a fad or phase I'm going through. Is that this is it? Now anybody else, they'd have been gone. So, but she understood. She understood. So,
and there's patience, and you have to wait. It takes a lot of patience and time, and believing and forgiveness and everything else to, you know, and that's not even between us. We have that already. We come with that, but it's patience with those outside of us
that don't understand.
They don't understand. Yeah. But if it influence us to get tighter and build a stronger bond and a stronger shield. Yeah, I told you.
So,
like, there's times you have to schedule a date night. You have to do it. Otherwise, it's gonna like run by and you'll never get to do it. So you gotta say, okay, on this Wednesday, on this Thursday, on this Friday, we're gonna utilize again our village, and hey, we're gonna go, even if it was just going to, what was that place? Ben 52, Ben 57?
Oh yeah, some random place in Jersey that they had $15 lobster dinners, and it was so good. Yeah. And the bartender knew us, and I found that place on my lunch break. Like, I was having a day, and it was like one of those shops that was in the ShopRite. So it was like this small restaurant that's in the ShopRite. So I would go there on lunch to get me a little something before I go back to work, just to, you know, take the edge off. And then when I got back to work, I was cool. And then the owner there was like, hey, we do Friday night $15 lobster dinners. You should come back. And it was just like, hey, this is in our budget. Yeah. It is around the corner from work, and we also
it was close to
also close to the baby's school. We didn't have to pick up the baby until 6:30, so we would have our mom and dad time prior to picking up the baby. And even if it was only an hour and a half, it was an hour and a half for just us.
Think about like what kind of makes this work between us.
Besides the fact that you put a gun in my head and said this is going to work. Go ahead, tell people.
No, you tell. Since you got so much to say, tell people what makes this work. What makes this work?
What makes this work? it's definitely our chemistry. Like, and it's funny because we complement each other. So I'm more the funny person and she's more the serious person. So our like what we do is everything we do just complements each other about our relationship. You know, like she'll work days, I mean she work days, I work nights, or I mean it just everything falls into place like that. Like a lot of things we do, a lot of our visions just complement each other. Like what do people say now? The drug dealer and the CNA couple.
Oh, no, wait, no. Let this be clear. He does not sell drugs, right? Because he's talking the drug dealers. We are not.
I'm just saying, like a nurse and a police officer. Like everything we do complements each other. Even like our way of raising our kids. Like we always good cop and bad cop, but at the end of the day, we always together. Everything we do is together, and that's the best thing that benefits us. Even when we're fighting,
which is true. There'd be a lot of those.
Anyway, pause. Anyway, like I mean that's what helps us. Even when we at each other's neck, one of us will come and say, "Hey, all right, that's enough." Like, we come together and like work things out. And that's all. I mean,
that's all you got.
Yeah, I mean that's not. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just a lot of work.
I think
I don't know how long these people want to sit here and listen to it.
Oh, okay.
I love story.
It's a combination of everybody communicating and working together and being willing to help us. So that was if you don't have that great support system, then it's gonna be hard. If you got to rely on outsource everything, and if you don't have the financial means, it's gonna make it even harder.
All right. So, like for me, when you look at marriage and when you approach marriage from a philosophical perspective, marriage is not just about emotion, and it's not just about like butterflies and that season of the relationship where you can't wait to see one another, and you can't wait to be with one another. That is not, to me, what really gives a marriage a 50-year, 60-year run. It really is about a commitment to me to the end. When you are married to someone, the vows are really clear that it's supposed to be to death do you part, but we live in a microwave society where if it ain't working, this year it's over, so I think in terms of relationship, what has given the relationship the longevity that it's had is probably just a commitment to the end of it, and really meaning that.
Be separate, but be close. We don't have to be up under each other. We're allowed to live our own lives and still be together, so it doesn't really conflict, and where the other one is needed, we kind of know. And communication is a strong point for our relationship. And stay away from our friends, for me.
He's
probably the secret ingredient to the secret sauce.
So for me, I think he touched on it, but we very much don't we don't let people in our household as far as like what we need. Like if we're having problems, or if it needs to be something that has to be discussed or whatever, even though I guess we just don't allow everybody's opinions to dictate our relationship. And I think also the fact that I would say you have to know the person. So even though communication is big for us, I also know that sometimes with him, he needs a few days before I can communicate. With me, I want to be like, let's deal with this now. Let's get to it. What's the problem? Or whatever. But for him, I also had to learn that, that's not how he processes things. So learning a
guide, there is no rule. I think at the end of the day, you just have to feel your way through what makes what's going to make both of you happy in a sense, and what's going to serve as, I guess, to complete the whole circle there, because now it was just me and her, and then now it's myself, her, and a baby that needs a lot of attention. So you just have to kind of, now you got to split. Hey, we got date night. What we got family night. What's the family going to do on this night now? And sometimes I literally had to write it down. Like I had to and I tell people this all the time. Like in relationships, like, and sometimes the other person don't have to know that you're putting them on the schedule, but sometimes you have to. Otherwise, it won't get done. So,
but it's definitely love, it's definitely appreciation, it's definitely laughter, continuous laughter, it's definitely motivation and supporting one another. So I'm glad I said something.
You have to know that this is what you want. There's a lot of young folks who think that they know that's what they want, but then, they want to dib and dab. You got to know that's the type of person that you want to be with.
But that takes time too, like not to rush things so fast, or be so fast to get married, or be so fast to, just rush in. It really does take time, and you really have to get to know your partner.
Yeah,
well.
it's like it's
well.
kind of known where they say the U-Haul, whereas it's like you get to know that person, you meet them, and next thing you know, you're moving in with them. You got to take take your time. So, and we've experienced that at younger ages, and we got that, but and you got to
but like with the kids, some of that was just like luck and a blessing, to be honest with you. We both come from decent sized families, so I have siblings, I have sisters, who are younger than me, who are very close to Jill. So like that really that was a blessing, because she doesn't have to come through me to access them, as supports and whatnot, and vice versa. I have my own relationship with Jill's family. So I think that blending of the family, really helped the relationship and the family, because, some of the natural stressors of marriage and all these little ones, really, how that really can kind of burn the relationship out.
You just think that, two people love each other. That's all they need to survive. And then you start to realize, like, okay, you can love someone, but there's a whole lot, like, just in terms of laundry list of things, just under communication, just under understanding the family dynamics, just under understanding how a person was raised, what they've seen, who was their mentor, who were the people that were influenced on them, and what did they see? So when you have two different people with two different perspectives, and sometimes it could be like still both say, oh yeah, I saw love, but it's always funny, like what one person sees and what another person sees, like it never be the same. You'll never see the exact same thing. We see this screen, but we see this screen at different angles. We see different things. So it's the same way. That's how I kind of attribute. So just loving someone, oh yeah, that's cool, but you have to be able to communicate with that person. You have to be able to communicate with that person again, and the same things you communicated with them already, you got to be able to communicate again down the line. And what I found out through that was, as life changes, people change, and you're supposed to change. And
well, so I think the sauce is...
Break it down. He's Morpheus from the Matrix. Come on now, Morpheus.
Yeah, the sauce is really about... it's about communication, and it's something that you have to learn to do early in the journey. If you don't have good communication, so there's a part of this is a shameless plug for a book I'm writing. Right, it's called C Cubed. Well, it's actually changed and morphed into something else, but anyway. So C Cubed, 3 C's, right? Consistency, commitment, and communication. So if you commit to consistent communication, that is a road for success. Not only in your relationships from a personal perspective, but also in your relationships at work, in the church, if that happens to be the one of the places that you spend time. But you got to commit to great communication. And if you do that, if you're consistent with your communication and being consistent with that, then you can end up with some great. So, you know, and we did, it's the long and short of it, but we didn't, the sauce piece of that is that you have to, it's like when you're creating a sauce, especially like if you're making a gravy from scratch, and if this is the first time that you've tried it, it don't come out right the first time. You know, you can do what you want to do and follow the recipe, but there's times when it doesn't work like that. So you have to, it's a testing and trying method. So we've had to try working through developing the great communication.
Right. And in addition to that, you know, people say, but I love him and I love her. And yes, love has to be in the mix, but love is not enough. It really is not. You have to also, you have to be friends. And I agree with the commitment and the communication. There has to be a level of commitment. You have to be committed and say, you know what, this is the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with. I know with early on when we got married, I was 29 when we got married. And I had always been taught, like, you know, the happily ever after, and I saw the fairy tales, and those are lies. They really are.
To a degree.
But the reason why is because it's portrayed like you don't have to put there's no issues involved. And there's no work involved. Being married, you have to work. The other thing before we go on is don't believe that 50-50, because that's a lie. That is not 50-50. Only means that I'm gonna give half of myself. I'm only gonna give half of myself,
which
and
means
he's
you
gonna
only
get half of yourself.
And you're only
half
gonna
of
get
marriage.
Half of, you're only gonna get half of what you.
That's foolishness. It is 100, and the reason why you say 100 is because there are times when you strive to give 100, but only 75 comes out. You know, or you strive to give 100 and 100 may come out. But at the end of the day, it is really work, commitment, love is mixed in there, but you also got to be friends and respect.
The main thing is adjusting to your spouse's differences on things. Like her ideas are quite different from my ideas. But I found out that by listening, you know, that you can learn a whole lot. And I'm assuming she listens to me sometimes when I give my opinion on things. But it's just a matter of listening and being, I guess, patient, you know.
You can't let outside folks in. Like, every relationship, they have their own twists and turns and their own little things, like own little sayings or own little jokes or own little conversations that her and I only know, you know what I mean, outside of people. But you cannot allow anybody in that space to expand that bubble. Like I said before, you know, our parents with the influencing and things like that, and how I went through struggles with that. And I wouldn't even allow my mother to pop that bubble. It had to get to a point where I say, Mom, I love you, but I can't allow you to break this up. This, you know, I put her first. I love my parents. Don't get me wrong, they brought me here, but it's just like any other marriage. When you marry that person, you're one, and that person is your priority, and that's what she is. So, and I've shown that to her, and she's shown that to me. So, that bubble is thick.
That's why I say it's kind of like it's a long list, and we can keep going. I mean, but it's communication, it's learning how to talk to each other, how to talk to one another as you grow, telling that person how you're growing, so that you're making sure you're not just doing, you're not doing that as you go, right? You want to kind of stay in line. And I think those things fall in line with that.
Person, knowing a person, I think that's also important to a secret sauce of a relationship.